rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, I just thought I'd start before I get into where people are going to start throwing tomatoes at me and everything else. I just thought I'd start, thanks to our Australian contingent. I'm going to give you an Australian word of the day. That's right, Australian word of the day. Walk. And for those of you that don't understand, because my closed captioning thing is assuming it's the English word walk, it's W-O-C-K is how it's pronounced, or how it's spelled. W-O-C-K. Walk. Anybody have any idea what a walk might be? W-O-C-K. Well, according to our Australian contingent, it's something you throw at wabbits when you don't have a rifle. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah. Oh, anyway. Yeah, a wok that you cook in is a W-O-K, or at least that's how it's spelled. Anyway, I'm sorry. It was a bad joke. It really was. I kind of picked up on it and was like, that's a bad way of, pronouncing rock. But okay. All right, enough of that foolishness, folks. I wanted to wait until I had a chance to really digest what the MOU with Iran really said. And all I've got to say is the MOU is P-O-O, in my opinion. Okay? The MOU is P-O-O. It stinks. Now, that being said, there's a couple of things that I do want to bring to the forefront that people may not want to think about or may want to think about when we're dealing with this. Anyway. All I got to say is, man, this doesn't look good. In my opinion, it doesn't look good. Now, part of my introduction... Okay, part of my introduction basically says that I'm going to bring you reality to politics. See, I don't fall on the I'm on the Trump train. Don't get me wrong. I am on the Trump train. I'm just not on the Trump train to the point where I am a sycophantic Trump follower, meaning that I don't sit here and think that he is essentially, second only to the Savior, our Lord and Savior. No, I'm not going to do that. He's a man just like anybody else. He makes mistakes. He does things. He's had all kinds of problems, but frankly, I don't really care mostly about any of that. But this memorandum of understanding is not the end of the world either. And it's not the end of the road. Honestly, this is just the beginning. And there's a lot of things in this that, I got to be honest with you, is really, really bad and never should have agreed to. Never should have been agreed to. And I'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But first, let's go ahead and get tonight's Pledge of Allegiance out of the way. Now, this one's going to give you a bit of a smile. I know it gives me a bit of a smile every time I hear it. It is a fan favorite. It fast, rapidly moved up the charts and got into at least the top 5 of the favorite ones here on the program. And it was put in by our friend Fernando. I don't think I've seen Fernando in the chat yet, but it was put in by him. It is his twins. And it is their rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Fernando's twins as they recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
This is our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bye.
Oh, and I thank you, Fernando twins, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email, and then send it off to me. Address that email to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. I have 24 of these. I'd like to have 26 by the end of 2026. And if you would, I would definitely appreciate it. And all you have to do, of course, is send it in to me. If you use your phone to record it, you can use the share option. That's the S-H-A-R-E option. And you can send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation as quickly as possible. Really quick programming note. Don't forget, Saturday, there is no show for Saturday, okay? I'm telling you that now. I'll tell you tomorrow, just to make sure that everybody is fully aware. I said it earlier this week. No show for Saturday. I have something else that I've got going on, another project that I have promised people I would go and do, and it's going to cut into transmission time. So we're just going to hold off on that. So anyway, okay. Anyway, let's get on with tonight's headline sponsor, which is, of course, The American View. And that's right. You can head on over to theamericanview.com. That's theamericanview.com to see all of the wonderful things that the American View organization is doing. It was formerly known as the Institute on the Constitution, which, of course, has been a proud addition to this show for many years. And anyway, The American View has a vision. The vision, of course, is a nation of effective and influential contributors to the American government, society, and culture, prepared by educational resources focused on the biblical and transformative heritage of America's founding. And that's their vision. And they put that out there by providing classes, courses, and things of that nature, all kinds of information, too. And in terms of their courses, their first one is, of course, the U.S. Constitution course, which you should go and check out. Now, you can get Lesson 1 for free. All you need to do is sign up by putting your first name, last name, and your email in the box that I'm showing on the screen, in the form that I'm showing on the screen. And then click Get Lesson 1 free. And once you do that, it'll be sent directly to your email box. Now, these lessons come from a nationally recognized 100% online course. There's 12 lessons in total. Each one is about 15 to 20 minutes long. And you'll be able to learn directly from the founders themselves in terms of what they meant, what they said, what they do. And once you're done with that, then you can go and check out the other classes that they have and also connect up with the American View by becoming a sponsor or donor, by becoming a member, or becoming an instructor. That's right. Leave a legacy. Restore the constitutional republic and prepare the future by hosting a course in your community. Become an instructor, and they give you all the help that you need. In fact, to figure out how to become an instructor, just go to theamericanview.com and look up their Becoming an Instructor page, where you can find this video called How to Become an Instructor, as well as 5 tips for a successful class. They have a book, an instructor book right there that is all compiled and ready to go. All you need to do is be able to present it to people. That's what being an instructor is all about. You can get that instructor manual, by the way, by heading off to their shop. And once you're there in their shop, you can go with their other educational resources, a U.S. Constitution course, instructor materials for their other courses, self-evident apparel, and my personal favorite, this right up above my head right here, the Legacy Library. That's right. When you go to the Legacy Library, it is filled with leather objects that are all about our country. We have a leather Declaration of Independence, a leather Bill of Rights, the leather Magna Carta, and the leather U.S. Constitution wall hanging. Man, I'm telling you, I desire all 4 of those, but I've had to settle for their greatest, in my opinion, their greatest achievement, which is the Leather Constitution book. That's right here in my hot little hands, you can see it. And according to my Whiskey Warrior 3 Chevy, each rounded cornered Saddleback leather book has a 100-year guarantee, such that all amendments are in ascending numerical order. Right here. G says you got to get one. Stitching. Period. Let me tell you about the stitching. Got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. What holds those pages in place? No cheap glue here, folks. That is stitched all the way through the pages themselves and the leather binding on the outside. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if something does go wrong with this item, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. My youngest Whiskey Warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics badge in scouting, as well as your civics exam and even that naturalization test. Boy, check that out. 3 tests for the price of 1. 1 book, 1 Constitution, 1 copy of the Constitution. It is a pocket-sized copy Constitution. It travels extremely well. And it could be considered, I consider it, a great family heirloom to pass down to other generations. So head on over to theamericanview.com, go to the shop, go to the Legacy Library, and pick yours up today. And of course, I thank The American View for being a fantastic sponsor of the show. All righty, folks. Well, according to Trump's Truth Social post, anybody who does not like this deal and think that he hasn't been tough enough on Iran are either jealous, bad people, or stupid. Well, I'm not jealous, because believe me, not that I really would want the job of the president, because frankly, I think it's a huge responsibility that while if I were to be asked to do it, I might take up the banner. However, I also know for a fact that I am not a bad person. I'm not a bad person at all. I'm kind of nice, easygoing. I get a little hot under the collar every now and again, but and as my Whiskey Warriors found out in the pre-show, my choice of reading material, reading in quotes, material. Anyway, it was, well, let's just put it this way. It didn't stand up to snuff for some people. Anyway, so apparently I'm just stupid because I don't like this thing. I don't know why we even bothered to, sign it. I'm just saying it does nothing for America. And in fact, it sets up things to where the Iranians and the Iranian regime think that they've won. See, here's part of the problem. You cannot allow these people. I mean, how many times can we look back in history and understand, first of all, these people lie to us. They lie to you all the time. They lie. They're not going to do anything of what this MOU is even talking about. It's not. Well, it got signed today. The president signed it. Now, I'm not going to go through every 14 point in here, but I am going to point out some of these things. First of all, and this is bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 1. That by the time the MOU is signed, okay, by the U.S. and Iran, all of the allies, of course, as a part of what they're calling the current war, declare an immediate and permanent termination of military operations. Now, here's the bad part. Including in Lebanon. So what Iran is doing is basically trying to save Hezbollah from Israel, from the same fate that Hamas had in Gaza. Now, I'm just going to point this out. First of all, America should not be dictating to Israel what Israel should and should not do. Okay, that's it. That's just it. I'm sorry. We should not dictate to them what we should and shouldn't do. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu has kind of made that, well, let's just say a little clear to President Trump about this. This, almost the entire first number 1 point in here was talking about ensuring the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. That they no longer, we and they can no longer do use of force, including in Lebanon. I'm confused. I really don't understand where Lebanon comes into play in dealing with Iran, other than the fact that we know Iran funds, supplies, directs, does pretty much everything for Hezbollah. Now, the second bullet point is just really, kind of really serious. Is, well, U.S. and Iran agree to respect each other, their sovereignty, their territory, refrain from interfering with each other's internal affairs. Okay, fine. Do you really think that Iran's going to stop sending terrorists our way? Seriously, I mean, come on. Anyway, now, here's the thing. This is the number 3 item. And this, honestly, is where things are probably going to go awry. See, this is a memorandum of understanding. This is not the final deal. Like I said, this is the beginning, not the end for this deal. So number 3 here says the United States of America and Iran commit to negotiating and achieving the final deal in a maximum of 60 days, which is extendable with mutual consent. Now, okay, fine. You guys are going to talk for 60 days. Anyway, immediately upon signing the MOU, this is point number 4, the U.S. will remove its naval blockade and any disturbances or impediments against Iran and will fully end the naval blockade within 30 days. During that period, the traffic of vessels will be in proportion to the numbers of pre-war traffic being restored by Iran. The United States further undertakes to remove its forces from the proximity of Iran within 30 days after the final deal. Okay, fine. So we need to remove our naval blockade. They need to allow traffic to come up and ensure safe passage. This is 4 and 5, because 5 covers this too. And allow traffic of commercial vessels and passage within the 60 days without charging them a toll. Because remember, Iran was charging a toll to pass commercial ships through. So in other words, what Trump is trying to get here is opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I'm going to point this out. America doesn't really have interest other than the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is where, a lot of other people in the world get their oil from. Primarily places like, China, Cuba, those places. Yeah. So America really doesn't have much of a stake here in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, other than to support our supposed allies, and I'm kind of like winking with the idea of Qatar, because Qatar is our ally, even though they fund stuff. Anyway. So, they also, on point number 5, it also says that Iran will work with Oman to define the future administration of the Strait of Hormuz. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway. Now, here's the big one. This is point number 6, and a lot of people are pissed at this. The United States of America undertakes with regional partners to develop a definitive, mutually agreed upon plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of Iran. The mechanism on the implementation of this will be finalized as a part of the final deal within 60 days. All required licenses, waivers, permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States of America. Now, a lot of people look at this and they think, oh, this is the U.S. paying $300 billion. No, that isn't what this says. This basically says that the U.S. will work to broker the deals from the regional partners. The payment will come in the form of 300 billion United States dollars as the currency, and that it is supposed to be going toward the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, this doesn't do anything for the United States. We're not taking anything. We're not doing anything. All we're doing is we're brokering the deal, and we're basically saying that, hey, we're going to be backing off and allowing this to happen. Now, the United States is supposed to terminate all types of sanctions against Iran, including any of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, which, of course, they were ignoring anyway, any unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, in an agreed-upon schedule as part of the final deal. Now, keep in mind, notice every single time they sit here and they say, as a part of the final deal. So, yeah. Now, item number 8. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. Period. There you go. That's the first sentence in item number 8. But it goes on. They have, the U.S. and Iran have agreed to resolve the disposition of the stockpile enriched material pursuant to a mechanism that is mutually agreed upon in accordance with the schedule mentioned in paragraph 7, with minimum methodology to be down blending on site under the supervision of the IAEA. Now, here, this is serious. And I'm just sitting here and I'm saying, this is serious. The IAEA has been trying to get into Iran. They have, in the past, completely said, no, we're not going to let you folks in here. We're not going to you can't see what we're doing. Even under the JPCOA, they were supposed to be monitored and managed. Not happening. Okay? It's not happening. Now, the two parties also agreed to discuss the issue of enrichment and other mutually agreed matters related to Iran's nuclear needs based on a satisfactory framework being agreed upon in the final deal. So what that means is, well, Iran has said that they will never procure nuclear weapons or develop them. However, we still want other nuclear needs. Now, they said before that they were not going after a nuclear weapon, that they were enriching uranium for the purpose of using it for commercial power. And what did they do? They enriched it far beyond what was needed for commercial power. Again, look at their history. See, this stuff is, Donald Trump is sitting here, and unfortunately, even J.D. Vance is kind of getting in this same kind of boat, because they're sitting here and they're saying, well, that's not what was said. See, this is part of the problem with having politicians in conflicts like this. And this is part of the reason why we had so many problems in Vietnam and Korea and everything, every other war that we've been in where it wasn't run by our military. It's plain and simple. Donald Trump is trying to find a way to do a couple of different things. One is to try and maneuver his way out of possibly getting in trouble with Congress, because he knows that Congress is potentially going to change hands. At least one of the two houses is potentially going to change hands in the midterm elections in November. And so what I think he is attempting to do here is he's attempting to politically maneuver to get some sort of a middle of the road, hey, look, you can leave me alone afterward. Here, I'm giving you all this stuff on Iran. Let me stay in office for 2 years. The Democrats have pretty much already said, clearly, they've already said, hey, the minute we get into power, we're impeaching your ass. They've already said it. And if you think that they're not going to do that, I guarantee you, you're wrong. And I think, in a way, this is something sort of like a bit of an olive branch from Donald Trump to the Democrats in Congress to basically say, hey, look, okay, I'm not going scorched earth anymore. You know, I've done some things, but, you know, I'm not going scorched earth anymore. Here we go. Now, here's the other one. Here's another one. Excuse me, here's another one. And again, keep in mind, all throughout this, it all talks about, hey, this is before the final deal hits. This is part of the reason why I keep saying this isn't over. I mean, this isn't over. Okay? Number 9, pending the final deal, the United States of America and Iran agree to maintain the status quo. Really? Iran will maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program, and the United States of America will not impose any new sanctions and will not deploy additional forces in the region. Okay. Really? Again, pending the final deal, pending the final deal. Every single thing is all talking about pending the final deal. Now, number 10, undertaking, the U.S. undertakes that immediately upon the signing of the MOU until the termination of sanctions, the U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and derivatives, and all associated services, including banking transactions, insurance, transportation, etc. So we are basically lifting any sanctions, waivers, and things, or any sanctions and anything that we've been putting on them for however long to capture not only their money, but also their economic, their economic pipeline, literally oil. We're going to lift it. Essentially, we're lifting it in terms of waivers. Now, this is ridiculous. They also talk about undertaking, this is point 11, undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of Iran. Upon implementation of this MOU, the U.S. and Iran mutually agree on procedures related to the release of these funds during the negotiation. So we're basically going to give them back any kind of money. I don't see what. Look at what happened under Obama. Obama handed them pallets of cash. Biden handed them billions of dollars. And what happened almost immediately after they received those billions of dollars from Biden? October 7th. These people, I'm telling you right now, these people are not to be trusted. The Iranians are not to be trusted, period. Anyway. So they continue on point number 12. It says the U.S. and Iran agree that an executive mechanism will be established in order to monitor the successful implementation of the MOU and any future compliance when the final deal comes into play. Now, it says after the signing of the MOU, and subject to the beginning of the implementation of paragraphs 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11, and the continuing implementation of these measures, the United States and Iran will start negotiations regarding the final deal exclusively on the other paragraphs. And then it says the final deal will be endorsed by a binding UNISC, or, United Nations Security Council resolution. This is crap. This is total shit. I'm just saying, this MOU is ridiculous. For being the self-proclaimed master of the art of the deal, this was bullshit. And I'm going to be honest as well. Trump kind of threw J.D. Vance to the wolves. This is J.D. Vance's deal. J.D. Vance was the one who negotiated this. I don't know why Trump is even agreeing to this. Actually, I do know why Trump is agreeing to this, or at least I have an indication of why Trump is agreeing to this thing. And it's really pretty simple. It has everything to do with with the price of oil and America's economic situation and the upcoming elections. You think that Donald Trump doesn't care about how he is perceived by the American public? Here's an example. As he was announcing the deal at the G7, when he was standing up on the stage, and if you watch the video of it, I don't have the video, but if you watch the video of it, you can see Marco Rubio is standing behind Trump, and as he's signing the thing, 2 days early, by the way, but as he's signing the thing, you can see Marco Rubio is not all that happy back there. I personally don't think that Marco likes this deal, and Marco would be right. Ted Cruz doesn't like this deal. And in fact, Don Jr. has, essentially taken Ted Cruz to task on this. But here's the real reason. The price of Brent crude, which is the global benchmark for all prices, fell by nearly 4%, crossing below $80 a barrel for the first time since the earliest days of the war. The West Texas Intermediate, the United States' benchmark, dropped 4.5% to around $77 a barrel. Stock markets, including our own, they rallied all around the world. All the major European indexes were up for the day. Stocks were also up in Australia, Japan, South Korea, India. Now, whose wasn't? China's Shanghai index dropped. So was the Hong Kong's Hang Seng index. Now, the Dow Industrial Average here in the U.S. gained about 0.75%, while the S&P 500 was down almost 0.25%. The NASDAQ Composite lost around 0.5 point. But hey, the average price of gas, well, it dropped below $4 in the wake of the deal, according to today. At press time, AAA marked the average national price of gas at $3.999 per gallon, with roughly half of the states enjoying prices that were below that mark. Now, keep in mind, again, all of this is domestically what's going on here in America. All of this is domestically attacking or it being part of an advantage for the president. But you also have to remember the midterms are not that far off. And if Donald Trump wants to stay on the, quote, good side of the American people, he needs, and he knows that he needs, to attack the economy. So honestly, for whatever reason, I believe he signed this memorandum of understanding with the idea, as he puts it, that if Iran does not follow the memorandum of understanding at all, which, come on, we all know that is highly, highly likely to happen. Okay? That Trump will then have the excuse to go and, in his words, bomb the crap out of them. Now, if that's the case, okay, great. But the problem is that they signed this agreement. And if you don't think that Iran is happy as hell over this, now think about this for a second. Let's just say that this memorandum of understanding and all of the crap and the poo that is in it, and yes, those are two different things, carries over to the final deal, the final signed deal. Even if some of that stuff in the MOU actually makes it into the final deal, what do you think Iran is going to do? Better yet, what do you think China is going to do? See, here's part of the problem. A lot of us, many of us, have been railing over the idea that, hey, you know what? The reason why Ukraine kicked off was simply because of the fact that Joe Biden showed weakness. That the reason why China started threatening Taiwan was because of the fact that Joe Biden showed weakness. Joe Biden performed a disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, hoping that politically he would be able to go and say, well, I was only following the previous president's deal. That I was only following what the previous president put out. Now, most of us, the vast majority of Americans, knew that that was a bunch of hunk of crap. That Joe Biden wanted to get out of Afghanistan in order to have a feather in his cap. This memorandum of understanding, if at the end of 60 days or however long they decide to extend it, if this ends up coming to fruition, then it literally, in my mind, is no different than the evacuation of Vietnam, the evacuation of Afghanistan. It's basically a complete failure. And the only saving grace between us in Iran and us in Vietnam or in Afghanistan is the fact that we didn't lose a ton of personnel, number one, most important, and a ton of money in the wake of things like Afghanistan. See, here is part of the problem. When you have a politician, and yes, Donald Trump was a businessman before this. He's now a politician. He has served in office. This is his second time. He is serving in office again. And I was hoping and praying and seriously hoping, hope is the only thing that I could say, hoping that he would not be your typical politician. And when he started this thing with Iran, he was not the typical politician because he was doing the thing that nobody else wanted to do. Which was go in and basically tell Iran, hey, morons, you've been shucking and jiving and doing all this stuff, that the buck stops here, folks. It's like that parent, or the grandparent actually, who has had enough with an insolent child. And he goes in and says, you know what, that's it, you're getting spanked. That's what Donald Trump did in the beginning. But now he has softened because he realizes that this, as a practical purpose, is going to go nowhere unless he can do something. Other than that, other than knowing or thinking that, hey, you know what? I have other things that are going on within my country that are domestic policies that honestly are being affected by this. For an example, the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, which would be a monumental domestic policy to get passed. Voter ID, photo ID required for elections in every single state of the union would be a monumental domestic policy that potentially could affect elections for not only the midterms, which we're getting to the point where we're not going to be able to do it then, or even 2028, when all of the stuff that Donald Trump has done can easily be undone by the next administration. Just like what happened with Biden's administration and the Trump administration coming in. Now, Donald Trump is a pragmatist. He always has been. He's a spreadsheets guy. He basically looks at the spreadsheets and he says, okay, what is the benefit here? He doesn't necessarily drop into all of the emotional parts of it. But at the same time, though, if you ever look at him, whenever somebody calls him a loser, calls him names, whatever, he immediately hits back. That's his mode of operation. And he has a little bit of narcissism in him. Maybe a lot. I mean, the guy's got to have his name on just about everything, and it's got to always be gold. But here's the deal. I don't know what happened with him in regards to this memorandum. But even he pointed out, he's like, well, I don't trust anybody. Well, if you didn't trust anybody, why did you sign this stupid thing? Maybe that's exactly what he wants. Maybe he is signing it because he knows that Iran is going to break it within the next 60 days. But here's part of the problem. He not only has to keep Iran in check, he's got to keep Israel in check. Because if you recall, at the very top of that memorandum of understanding, Israel at this point can no longer attack Hezbollah in Lebanon, now that the MOU is signed. If Israel breaks that, Iran says that things are over with, and there you go. And we're right back into it. Now, all of that being said, he is privy to much more information, much more intelligence, much more background information out of all of this. And unlike Joe Biden, Donald Trump doesn't telegraph necessarily his plans. That's part of the draw to a Donald Trump is because he is literally unpredictable. And maybe this is part of his unpredictability. I can only hope so. I can only hope that this is part of a much larger plan, a much larger way for him to basically say, hey, look, Congress, and seriously, right now, Congress is like his biggest enemy. Hey, look, Congress, I signed a ceasefire-ish peace deal with conditions. I have no control at this point. I'm going to do everything that I said I was going to do, but Iran has to do everything they said they were going to do. And if Iran doesn't do everything that they said they were going to do, well, guess what? Now that opens up a new 90-day 1973 War Powers Act window, which allows him to go back in militarily. Now, I also am pointing out, too, that the Republicans in Congress, in the Senate, are getting pissed off over the fact that Mike Lee keeps bringing up the SAVE Act. And the SAVE Act is incredibly important to people like Trump and, believe it or not, the vast majority of the American people. This could be some sort of a finagling. He could be trying to work out some sort of a deal here. Because again, I mean, he keeps claiming he has the art of the deal. But this doesn't look, on the outset, this doesn't look like much of a deal. Other than the fact that there is a bunch of caveats, provisos, quid pro quos, all kinds of things as a part of this memorandum of understanding. Now, on its face, it is, again, a total pile of poo. But underneath that pile of poo, there might actually be a gem that will allow him, meaning Donald Trump, to be able to emerge victorious on the other side. Only time will tell. But I can tell you from my personal experience, I never would have signed that memorandum of understanding. Of course, then again, I also wouldn't have waited forever to do anything major. I probably would have taken Karg Island right away. I probably would have bombed the crap out of anything that they may have had in terms of internal oil refineries and everything else. I would have taken out every single military spot that they had available. And yes, I would have gone for a regime change. But that's just me. And I'm not the president. All righty. Let's step off the memorandum of understanding soapbox and talk about the Supreme Court. I don't know if anybody realizes, but there's something like, 17 or so decisions that have to be put out before the end of the month, and there's only a couple of days where they actually put them out left in the month. Although there is an indication, by the way, that they may extend their session longer than what the end of the month is. Okay? Now, that being said, for those of you who might be users of a certain cannabis variety, and want to own a weapon, the Supreme Court announced today that you cannot prosecute, the government itself cannot prosecute somebody for owning a firearm just because they habitually smoked marijuana. So the ruling apparently clarifies a section of the Gun Control Act that forbids a person who is an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance from owning guns. Now, Justice Gorsuch wrote, the government maintains that it may automatically strip the man of his Second Amendment right to possess a firearm because he uses marijuana a few times a week. He says it makes no difference either if he keeps a firearm in his home only for self-defense, never misuses a gun while intoxicated, never poses a danger to himself or any others as a result of his marijuana use. The only thing the government must show, it says, meaning the government saying, that the individual regularly uses any amount of any controlled substance. Now, the decision, amazingly, in narrowing this law was unanimous. Yes, even the 3 activist idiots on the court agreed with this. So the case revolves around the FBI searching a Texas home of a suspected drug dealer. In 2022, they found marijuana, a small amount of cocaine, and a Glock 9mm pistol. The guy admitted to law enforcement that he smoked weed approximately every other day, but that he was not on drugs during the search. He was indicted for unlawful possession of the gun, but he challenged it, arguing that the wording of the statute was too vague and it violated the Second Amendment. Now, here's the thing. Again, I'm putting on my strict constitutionalist hat here. I don't seem to recall the Second Amendment saying that you, as a person, do not have the right to keep and bear, meaning own and carry, a firearm if you are under. You are not allowed to do this if you are under the influence of anything. No, the Second Amendment just literally says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Period. End of story. So while I get that it's probably not a good idea to carry a firearm if you're drunk or if you're high, just like it's not a smart idea to drive a car if you're drunk or if you're high, the government itself, honestly, has no constitutional reason based on the writing of the Second Amendment to interfere or to infringe upon anybody's right to keep or bear arms. Period. And essentially what that means is that if you are a United States citizen in good standing, meaning that you're not a convicted criminal, because that does have applications in the Constitution, but you're not a convicted criminal, you haven't been, arrested by law enforcement or anything else, I'm sorry, but the Constitution stands up and says no. Any citizen who is a law-abiding citizen, regardless of whether they use illicit drugs or not, they've never been caught, they've never hurt anybody, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so in this particular case, yes, the Supreme Court was correct. And I agree with them wholeheartedly. So, yeah. Anyway, still waiting on the birthright citizenship one or the men and women's sports one or a few others that are out there. So obviously I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Supreme Court in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully they come out with something, with some really good decisions. But anyway. Alrighty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, a thumb sideways or maybe at an angle. Across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.